Good morning. My name is Sandra Moore. My pronouns are she and her, and I will be your pulpit host today. On behalf of this congregation, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Huntsville. We acknowledge that we're on traditional lands of native tribes. Whether you have joined us online or are here in person, we're glad to have you this morning with us in this sacred time that we choose to be together. We are an open community of caring, justice-making, and learning. You are welcome here, every part of you, just the way you are. Our congregation is served by our minister, the Reverend Jamie Simon, who is currently away on sabbatical and on honeymoon, we hear. Reverend Ruth Van Lillian serves as our sabbatical minister and is available for pastoral care or to answer questions about Unitarian Universalism. You can make an appointment by just calling the office to speak with her. Today, Deborah DeLacy, a member of our congregation, will be presenting the sermon. Now, please take a moment to silence your electronic devices. If you have a joy or sorrow or important milestone that you would like shared during our circle of candles and included in the pastoral prayer a little bit later, please write it on one of our white cards that you'll find in the pew, in the back of the pew in front of you. You'll be putting that in the offering basket when it comes around. For community news and events, please check our email newsletter if you're already receiving that, or our website, or the paper insert in your order of service this morning. After our service, everyone is welcome to join us in the fellowship hall for coffee and snacks. Now I would like to invite Taylor DeLacy to ring the singing bowl and help us enter into the service more deeply. Having gathered in a shared quest for truth, meaning, and purpose, let us light our chalice with these words. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and in celebration of the life that we share. And now, to help us center ourselves and quiet our minds, we will have our music for centering, which will be followed by our thread song, which will be page 147 in the and we'll only sing verse 1.
Good morning, friends. My name is Deborah DeLacy. My pronouns, my pronouns are she and her. And it is my joy to be your speaker this morning. Let us settle in with these centering words adapted from Gwen Matthews. You contain the holy. You are welcome to this time, this space, this moment that we carve out of often busy and hectic schedules. You are welcome to this time for collective breaths, for words, for music, for lighting candles, and for us simply to exist here together. And you are invited into this time this morning with these words from Ta-Nehisi Coates from his book, Between the World and Me. I believe, and still do, that our bodies are ourselves, that my soul is the voltage conducted through neurons and nerves, and that my spirit is flesh. Our bodies are ourselves. My soul is the voltage conducted through neurons and nerves. My spirit is my flesh. Wow, okay. Yes to all of that. The essence that is you, the spark of life, is in your body, is of your body, and it is, you are divine. In other words, you contain the holy within you right now. And now, I invite you to take a breath as we enter into this sacred time in body, mind, and spirit. Our opening hymn this morning is hymn number 295 in the gray hymnal, Sing Out Praises for the Journey. Please rise in body or spirit to sing together.
Last week's bulletins were sitting right out there in case someone else has it. Also. Oh yeah, this one.
After our first hymn, it is our tradition to sing the doxology, which is found on the blue laminated cards in the back of the pew ahead of you. After the doxology, we will turn toward the center aisle to face one another and speak aloud our words of aspiration, which are also found on the blue card. Let us sing our doxology. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. You may be seated. Who is young or young at heart to join us in the front of the sanctuary for our story for all ages, which will be presented today by Deborah DeLacy.
Good morning. So I found this book. It's called Big by Vashti Harrison, and I use it in my library for story times. And I really love this book. There are parts of the book that are just pictures, not words, so I wanted to show you all because it won't make much sense unless you can see the pictures. So this is the story, Big. Lots. Because when I do a story time at my school, I read it to the different classes. I take one class at a time. So when I read books, I probably read them about 30 times. All right. I just realized not too long ago that I'm getting old. Sneaks up on you. Once there was a girl with a big laugh and a big heart and very big dreams. She learned her ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. She always said please and thank you and even put away all her toys. At dinner, she ate all her food. "What a big girl you are," the adults would say, and it was good. She grew and learned and laughed and dreamed and noticed some of the words that surround her: sweet, kind, caring, compassionate, imaginative, considerate, smart, creative, free, fun, graceful, nimble. So many good words surround her. She grew and grew and grew, and it was good. Until it wasn't. And you can see a picture of her trying on something. And do you see the lady's face? She's not so happy about it. And then she goes to see Santa. And of course, Santa says, "You're a big girl, aren't you?" We don't know if he means that nicely. And then all of a sudden, she's in a line with all the second graders. And she's bigger than they are. One day something happened. I can't wait for the recital, one girl says. I'm going to be a rose, another girl says. I'm going to be a daisy, a third girl says. And she says, oh no. Help! And notice the people around her. OMG, ha ha ha, wail. Look, she's stuck. Moo. More like moose. And so then the teacher has to come over and help her out, and the teacher is not happy. And so then the teacher has her own words for this girl. You could have hurt someone. Don't you think you're too big for that? You should know better. You're in big trouble. It made her feel small. The words stung and were hard to shake off. And you can see them written on her body. On her back, it says too big. On her arm, it says moose. On one leg, it says cow. And on the other leg is the ha, ha, ha. Yeah, very mean. She began to feel not herself. Out of place, exposed, judged, yet invisible. And you can notice in all of these, she's just a little too big for her space. Everyone had advice. That's no good. Try this instead. So they're deciding that she can't be in the bright pink, that she needs to be in the dark color, because dark colors, we know, are slimming. And notice the name of the paint, Husky Gray. But that kind of hurt too. This is perfect for you. So when all the other little girls get to be dainty little flowers, what does she get to be? A mountain. A mountain. That's not very ballet. So notice as she's running away, look at her feet. Do you think she really makes those craters as she runs? But that's what she feels like. That's the voice in her head. And the teacher says, the flower costume won't fit. You're just too big. Where are you going? What did I say? How do you think she's feeling? Yeah. Exactly. Everybody's being mean. So she's trying to figure out where she fits in the world. And all she sees herself as is big. So big she doesn't seem to fit anywhere. So big that she doesn't even fit on one page in the book. And she tries and tries to push herself out of the space that she's confined into, and finally feels like there's no solution. Very sad. Our Aren't you too big to be crying? Have you tried being smaller? Why can't you just fit in? So these are things that lots of people try to tell us when we don't fit in. One day, she finally let it all out. And if you notice the words, the illustrator does something really interesting. The words that feel good are in pink because pink is the happy color. Pink is the color she wants to be. The words that hurt are in black. So the black word says too big. The pink word says graceful. And then we have a black word that says moose and a pink word that says creative. And another black word that says ha, 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 big girl. And then there's a pink word that says big. Because remember, in the beginning, big was such a good thing. And then we have the last word in black that says cow. And she started to see things more clearly. So you see her scooping up the words from her tears. She decided to make more space for herself. And this part of the book, she gets even bigger. You can see this one is like 4 pages long of her. Yeah. Yeah, it's up there too. And she was able to see a way out. Got to turn this page, it's a little harder. So she's holding on to those black words, and she walks up to the people who said them. And she says, "These are yours. They hurt me." Not everyone understood or even listened. The boy holding the word whale says, "It's just a joke." The lady who's holding big girl says, "It's not that serious." The lady who's holding too big says, "You're too sensitive." Some tried. The one that laughed says, "I didn't mean to hurt you." But they still couldn't see. Someone says, "I can help you change if you want." And she responds, "No, thank you. I like the way I am." They couldn't see that she was just a girl. And she was good. And notice she's once again surrounded by all those beautiful words that she started with. And that is our story. So we're going to go ahead and sing you off to your classes.
We are the Unitarian Universalist Church of Huntsville, Alabama, a proudly inclusive spiritual community. Together, we build broader search for meaning, bolder form of compassion, braver voice for justice. If you would like to support us with a monetary contribution, we would be grateful. Your generosity helps us support our various ministries, pay our staff a fair wage, and partner with organizations that share UU values. You can donate online or use the code on the back of your order of service, or you can put cash or check donations in the offering baskets. Completed circle of candles cards should also be placed in the offering baskets. In addition, you are invited to come forward during this time and quietly drop a rock in the bowl of water here in order to honor the memory of someone you hold dear or thoughts that you prefer not to speak at this time. It is through your generosity that we serve our mission here at UUCH. With gratitude, we now receive the offering.
One of the great things about being in this community is that we hold in care and concern those joys and sorrows shared amongst us. We have so many sorrows where the burden is eased by sharing with others. We have so many joys that are compounded when we can bring them into our community. And we have those that are mixed. Jaylee Kordowski has a sorrow and a joy. The sorrow is for those thousands of people reaching out to the crisis suicide hotline because they are terrified about losing jobs, insurance, Medicaid, and life-saving medications. Her joy is that there will be a protest Monday, February 17th at Big Spring Park from 4 to 6 p.m. Along those same lines, Juniper Efemenko, has a sorrow that with fear and anger I lament that the Alabama House passed State Bill 79 this past week, a transphobic piece of legislation seeking to define what is a woman in the most uninclusive of terms. And Susan Coddington has a sorrow. My sister-in-law, Beth, has been diagnosed with cancer. We don't know the details yet, but the prognosis appears grim. We are going to Indiana this week to be with her. Let us be moved to compassion for all that has been shared into this beloved community, and for all that will remain silent, unspoken, and in our hearts. And let us say, blessed be and amen. And now will you join us in singing our responsive music, number 1009 in the Teal hymnal, Meditation on Breathing. So in the book I just read, at the very end is an author's note. And the author wrote, "In childhood, big is good. Big is impressive, aspirational. But somewhere along the way, the word begins to tell us something different. That big is bad. That being big is undesirable. I was never a dancer, but I did get stuck in a swing when I was younger. Some of the older kids and I were playing on the baby swings, and I couldn't get out. I was the only one to get into trouble. My size indicated to adults that I was big enough to know better, even though I was still just a kid. I learned that day that my body did not fit. It did not belong. And adults no longer saw me as a little girl who could make innocent mistakes. While my experience was far less overt than the one in this book, the thoughts and words at work are the same. A child sits in the crosshairs of adultification bias and anti-fat bias. She is subjected to judgments and prejudices that are harmful and have lasting effects. Still, she finds enough self-love to return the words that were unkind and unhelpful. I hope she will stand as a guide to all who need to see her journey, especially those of us who are Black girls in big bodies. I remember thinking I couldn't wear pink, that it was just too bright a color, and it might make me stand out. From an early age, I developed insecurities that told me it was safer to shrink into the background and try not to call attention to myself. I chose the color palette for this book to reject that old thinking. In color psychology, pink is associated with gentle love, tenderness, and nurturing. Pink flowers symbolize innocence, joy, playfulness, and happiness. These are all things this girl deserves. Her body is not a problem that needs fixing. And neither did mine that day on the playground. What needs fixing are the implicit biases we hold. I wish I could give the girl a hug, the part of her that is me and the part of her that might be you, and tell her that she is deserving of all the care and joy in the world, no matter what. Being close to Valentine's Day, I want to tell you a love story this morning. An ever-evolving love story with twists and turns, the way all good stories go. I was born to a family of 4, where my mom and dad had one boy and one girl, and they thought their family was complete. And then I showed up. I was told I was an oopsie, an unintended surprise, and not always in a good way. I look like my father, where my siblings resemble my mother, making me the other when we went out without him. My siblings even had this ongoing narrative that I was the product of an affair with the mailman or maybe the plumber, and not a full sibling at all. My father died before I was able to form any kind of meaningful relationship with him, unlike my older siblings. And these things put together made me feel less than, and leaving a hole where a loving father would have nicely fit. My sister, the oldest, was the golden child. She was thin and outgoing, popular and successful in school. I was stocky, awkward, failed spelling tests, and couldn't memorize my multiplication tables to save my life. My mom would take my sister clothes shopping, living vicariously through someone who could fit into anything and look good even in a potato sack. When I wanted the same outfits, my mom's famous line was, "Minis are for skinnies." I was big, like the girl in the story, but I did not learn, as she did, that what others felt about me was none of my business. They belonged to them, and they were not who I am. I was raised in a strict fundamental Pentecostal household, going to church 3 times a week, twice on Sundays, once on Wednesdays, and sometimes Saturdays as well. It was a four-square church where the 4 foundational beliefs were salvation, baptism in water, communion, and baptism in the Holy Spirit. Religion was supposed to fill all the spaces I had the desire for love and connection. And in some ways, it did, but it was never enough. Baptism in the Holy Spirit meant that people spoke in tongues and got slain in the Spirit, which meant being overcome with emotion to the point of passing out. I went down to the altar every Sunday at the end of service when they would do the altar call to get prayed over in order to be baptized in the Holy Spirit. I wanted to speak in tongues, which just sound like an unintelligible jumble of words, but was supposed to be another language that we just didn't understand. The elders prayed and prayed. I prayed with them, but nothing ever happened. No words came to me, which ultimately sent me the message that I couldn't even do God right. After being molested by a relative at an early age, I learned incorrectly that my body was not my own. I also learned that I could receive the attention and affection I was looking for, at least on a surface level, through boys and men. I started living a double life as a teen, religious and pious in front of family and friends, but sneaking out late at night, being reckless with men twice and sometimes 3 times my age. When I ended up pregnant at 17, my mom cried. My youth group at church threw me a baby shower, but didn't know how to deal with me being in a youth group, holding a baby carrier, my own scarlet letter in a Disney onesie. So that touchstone was gone. I was told, and I agreed at the time, that raising my oldest son, Vincent, as a single mother was my natural consequence for the sin of premarital sex and for desecrating the body that God had gifted me, which I should have treated as the temple it was meant to be. It was hard, and I felt like the worst mother in the world. Vincent had trouble in school to the point that I had to come sit with him if he was to attend kindergarten. He had so many diagnoses, took so many different medications, saw psychiatrists and psychologists, and we still barely hobbled through. He ended up in special schools and even went to a residential program at one point, and still never graduated from high school. Outsiders pointed out the ways in which I fell short. And of course, being alone, young, and unprepared with a mentally ill son, requiring so much, I agreed with them wholeheartedly, berating myself for all the mistakes I made. In my professional life, I went on welfare, putting up with the crowded office waiting rooms with screaming babies and the looks of disgust from both checkers and the customers at grocery stores when pulling out the food stamps. But I got my bachelor's degree in education. I couldn't work even if I wanted to because every time I dropped Vincent off at school or even after school care, I was always bracing for the phone call that something had happened, that he had done something wrong, and I needed to come pick him up immediately. In my family, I was seen as the black sheep, which of course was expected since I was not supposed to be in the world in the first place. And this only increased when I finally realized that one of the reasons I was never able to form deep, genuine, loving bonds with men in my life was because I was gay. My family and my chosen church family, at that time invoked the love the sinner, hate the sin line, which allowed them, without guilt, to distance themselves from me and treat me like a pariah. All of the people in my life who had claimed to love me unconditionally suddenly had conditions. Apparently, the breaking point was not premarital sex, as it turns out, but wanting to fall in love with a woman. All these messages coalesced in my brain to confirm my deepest thoughts, that I am truly unworthy of love. I had several tumultuous relationships where partners cheated on me and mistreated me, and yet I begged them to stay. I thought no one else would love me, even if that love was tainted, and maybe even only in my head. You see, over and over, the people that I thought loved me would deny being in a relationship with me to others, making me feel gaslit and as if they were too ashamed to acknowledge even being with me because I was so unlovable for whatever reason. Then I met Suze. I would love to say that this is where the happily ever after comes in, but we all know that's fiction anyway. What my relationship with Suze has done is it has given me a solid foundation of unconditional love and trust, so I can move away from survival mode and really have space to work on myself. I pushed her away with both hands at several points because I couldn't believe that she truly loved me. I looked for ways in which she was being disingenuous because that was familiar. But she held on, and I held on, and we're still holding on. I had always struggled in my professional life because I was a single mom early on, After I got my bachelor's degree, I had to go to work. The welfare system had decided that I had already strained the system enough, and it was time to become a contributing member of society. As an educator in Los Angeles, this meant that I didn't have the qualifications to work in the public school system, since this required a credentialing program which would have been a 5th year in school. I worked in private schools, which didn't pay well, didn't have job security, and definitely didn't have the benefits that public schools gave their teachers. I was laid off from one school mid-year and worked at a local amusement park for minimum wage to make ends meet. With Susan's help, I was finally able to stop the grind and enter a credential program, which greatly changed my life. I was able to get better jobs, teaching middle school English for public schools that I loved, but I still suffered from imposter syndrome and social anxiety. A 7th grade student walked into class one day wearing this shirt. It seems like a light-hearted, funny shirt. And you can notice the big message is, "Judge me by my size, do you?" And it was supposed to be Yoda being too short to ride the rides at Disney World. But where I saw it, let's see where I am. It opened the floodgates of insecurity inside of me, because I knew then, and I know now, that people definitely judge me for my size, just like the girl in the book. Because I had never dealt with the negative messaging I received throughout my life, I heard all of those voices at that point. And whenever I felt the least unsure or stressed, I would be in a panic, and I would have to call in sick because I couldn't find anything to wear that would hide all of the negative thoughts that were flooding my brain. I would have rages where those voices were telling me that everyone was judging me and that I was always in the wrong. Where students would push my very last button, and I would yell just a little too loudly and be a little too harsh with my words. Those voices would remind me incorrectly that I was all by myself and I could trust no one. That ultimately, everyone would see through the veneer and realize I was not a good person at all. Suze guided me toward medical care to deal with the physiological symptoms, and together we found a psychologist and a psychiatrist to deal with my emotional symptoms. But mostly, she loved me until I could love myself. Through years of therapy, many different combinations of medications, and having the stability I need to be introspective, I am seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. I would love to say that everything is getting better, but I am still estranged from my mom and my brother, who have decided that upholding their religious dogma is more important than having any kind of meaningful relationship with me or my family. They have dealt with their own traumas by holding steadfast to the beliefs that I have long rejected. My smart, beautiful sister has been beaten up by life and poor choices, coming in and out of my life, depending on how the wind blows. But I have a new therapist whom I love, and she is teaching me through every visit and exercise how to love myself. I am learning to take deep breaths and grant myself grace in moments where I fall short. I am learning to recognize the negative self-talk that is rampant in my brain and to repeat the mantra that I did the best I could with the information and tools that I had at the time. I am learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions and to recognize that I don't have to push them away through dissociation because they don't last forever and they will not break me. I am learning to communicate better, no longer so afraid of what people will think or how they will react to my authentic thoughts and feelings. I'm also learning to forgive. I'm learning to forgive myself for bringing my eldest son into the world to suffer severe mental illness and rejection by his biological father, who I chose. I am learning to forgive myself for all of the times I fell short as a mother, failing to be as nurturing and loving as I should, both with him and my other 3 kids. I am learning to forgive myself for all of the rages, angry words, and running away when I was undiagnosed and unmedicated. I am learning to forgive myself for the times when, even diagnosed and medicated, I fell into the same actions and thought patterns. I am learning to forgive myself for allowing all of the negative messages to take a stronghold in my heart and soul. And ultimately, I am learning to love. I'm learning to love the parts of me that I was always afraid for anyone to see. I'm learning to love the vulnerability it takes to reach a deep connection with others, even though it scares me. I'm learning to love my life and all of the decisions, both good and bad, that have gotten me to this point. I am learning to hold those parts of me that were broken and love them back into repair. According to Corey Muscara, the version of you that survived is seldom the version that will help you thrive. It's an act of love to release the patterns that once kept you safe. So this is my love story. This is not the end by any means. This story will go on until my last breath, and I will always have to work to love and forgive. But I will do the work. And remember, as the late great Whitney Houston sang, learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. And now please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, 1014 in the teal hymnal, Answering the Call of Love. And in your hymnal, it might have different words. The words have been changed to be more inclusive. And so we're going to be singing Answering the Call of Love.
we take a moment now to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are gathered again. Friends, our worship service. Okay.
Friends, our worship service now comes to a close. I will be at the back of the sanctuary to greet you, and you are invited to go to the fellowship hall for fellowship and conversation and snacks. For those in our live stream, thank you for being with us this morning. And now let us leave this sacred time with these parting words, once again from Cory Muscara. When you stop chasing who you think you should be, you make space to love the person you truly are. Amen. Blessed be, and let us go out singing our rite of community, number 1039 in the Teal hymnal, Be Thou With Us.